That morning, no one expected a single act of defiance to change military history. What began as routine training became a moment every soldier on base would remember, and one that would test the difference between following orders and doing what's right. The sun crested the horizon over Joint Base Al Udeid, casting long shadows across the vast expanse of concrete aprons and sand-swept runways. Lieutenant Marcus Hale stood at attention in the pre-dawn chill, his boots planted firmly on the dew-kissed tarmac. The air carried the faint tang of jet fuel and distant diesel engines, a familiar symphony to anyone who'd spent years in the special warfare pipeline. At his side, Rex, his Belgian Malinois K9 partner, sat rigid, ears perked, black eyes scanning the horizon with unerring focus. Rex's fur, still damp from an overnight mist, gleamed under the emerging light, his harness cinched tight against the lean muscle of his frame. "Fall in!" barked Master Chief Ramirez, the operations officer for SEAL Team 7's forward deployment. His voice cut through the quiet like a K-bar through canvas, echoing off the low-slung hangars. 20 operators snapped into formation, their multicam uniforms crisp despite the humidity clinging to the Gulf air. Hale, at 32, was mid-pack in seniority, a platoon leader with 8 deployments under his belt. But he moved with the precision of a man who'd earned his trident through sweat and silence. Rex shifted slightly, his nose twitching at the scent of boot polish and gun oil wafting from the line. The briefing tent loomed nearby, its flaps secured against the wind that whispered promises of another scorching day. Inside, maps of the Syrian border region were pinned to foam boards, marked with red pins for potential hot zones. This was no Hollywood op. It was the grind of counter-ISIS patrols, scouting villages, securing supply lines, and sniffing out hidden caches. Hale's role was specialized. Rex was trained for explosive detection and personnel search, his nose a force multiplier in terrain where IEDs lurked like buried secrets. The bond between them was forged in the mud of Bud S, where Hale had learned to read Rex's subtle cues, the flick of an ear, the low rumble in his throat, better than any radio chatter. "Listen up," Ramirez continued, pacing the front of the formation. His boots thudded rhythmically on the concrete, a metronome of discipline. "Today's exercise, simulated village clear. Alpha and Bravo platoons rotate through the mock compound. Hale, your team takes point on scent work. HQ's got eyes on this. New protocol from CENTCOM. No deviations. We stand down on any unconfirmed signals. Clear?" "Clear, Master Chief." Uda the platoon chorused, voices steady and low. Hale's hand rested lightly on Rex's head, feeling the warmth of his partner's skull beneath the fur. Loyalty wasn't spoken here. It was in the quiet press of a paw against a leg during long stakeouts, or the way Rex would heal without command in the chaos of a helo insertion. Hale had lost a teammate to a buried device 3 years back, and since then, Rex had become more than a tool, an extension of his own vigilance. The team moved out as the first rays pierced the haze, Humvees rumbling to life with throaty growls. Dust devils swirled at the edges of the training area, a mock village of plywood shacks and chain-link perimeters designed to mimic the labyrinthine alleys of Raqqa. Hale loaded into the lead vehicle. Rex at his feet, the dog's chain clipped short. The drive was short, 10 minutes of jolting over rutted paths, the radio crackling with procedural checks. All call signs, confirm ROE, weapons tight. They dismounted in formation, weapons slung low, scanning sectors. The air grew thicker with the scent of simulated smoke from pyrotechnics, acrid, like burning tires. Ramirez signaled the start, and Hale unclipped Rex, giving the hand command, "Such! Search!" The dog bounded forward, nose to the ground, weaving through the mock doorways with fluid grace. Hale followed at a measured pace, his M4 carbine at the ready, eyes darting to corners where shadows pooled. The first 2 shacks were clean. Rex signaled negative with a brief sit, tail unmoving. The team cleared them methodically. stacking at entries, peeling off to cover angles. "Clear left," murmured Petty Officer Ellis, Hale's point man. Sweat beaded on Hale's brow, the heat already building despite the early hour. Rex paused at the third structure, a low hut with a corrugated roof, his body tensing. A low whine escaped his throat, not the alert for explosives, but something else. Hale knew that sound. It was the nuance of personnel scent, layered with an undercurrent Rex reserved for the vulnerable. "Easy, boy," Hale whispered, kneeling beside him. Rex pawed at the dirt near a loose panel, insistent, his breath coming in measured sniffs. The toy, Hale spotted it now, half buried, a small plastic soldier, faded red and yellow, the kind smuggled into war zones by children clinging to normalcy. But this was training. Props were standard, yet Rex's reaction wasn't protocol. His nose pressed closer, unyielding. Ramirez's voice crackled over the comms. "Hale, report, we're on timeline." "Negative on ordnance, Master Chief," Hale replied, keeping his tone even. "But Rex has a hit on. Secondary scent. Possible personnel indicator." Static hissed. "Stand down, Lieutenant. It's a sim. No live assets. Reset and move to the next sector." Hale hesitated, his gloved hand hovering over the panel. Rex whined again, louder, eyes locked on Hale's. The dog's loyalty was absolute, a mirror to Hale's own code: never ignore the signal. Around them, the team held position, boots shifting on gravel, the distant thump of a Blackhawk warming up its rotors. The wind picked up, carrying grains of sand that stung like tiny accusations. In that frozen moment, Hale felt the weight of the chain of command pressing down, the unyielding structure that had kept them alive through a dozen ops. But Rex's nose didn't lie. It cut through deception, human or otherwise. The toy wasn't just a prop. Hale's gut twisted with the memory of a real village raid, where a child's forgotten doll had led them to a hidden family, averting disaster, obey the stand-down or trust the bond that had saved lives before. He glanced at Ellis, who gave a subtle nod. "Cover me." The team's eyes were on him now, silent witnesses in the rising dust. Hale's fingers brushed the panel, the decision hanging like the heat shimmer off the tarmac. Orders were clear, but conscience whispered louder, a quiet breath before the storm. Hale's fingers curled around the edge of the panel, the rough metal biting into his glove despite the leather. He could feel the team's gaze boring into his back. Ellis to his left, rifle steady but eyes questioning. The others fanned out in a loose wedge, their breaths measured against the rising whine of the wind. Rex pressed his muzzle harder against the dirt, a soft growl building in his chest. Not aggression, but insistence. The kind that had pulled Hale from the brink in Fallujah when a clear building hid a tripwire. The toy soldier glinted mockingly in the sunlight, its painted face chipped as if mocking the simulation's artifice. "Stand down, Hale," Ramirez repeated over the net, his tone sharpening like a blade drawn slow. "That's an order. We don't chase ghosts in training. Acknowledge." Hale's jaw tightened, the salt of sweat trickling into his mouth. He keyed his mic with his free hand, voice level despite the pulse hammering in his temples. "Acknowledged, Master Chief. Resetting now." But he didn't move. Rex's paw scraped again, dislodging a clod of earth that revealed more. Not just the toy, but a faint seam in the plywood floor, irregular, like a hasty patch. His mind raced through protocols. CENTCOM's new ROE emphasized efficiency, cutting false positives to streamline ops. But this wasn't a false positive. Rex's alerts were 98% accurate, calibrated in labs and proven in dust-choked streets. Ellis shifted his weight, boot crunching gravel softly. "LT, you good?" he murmured, low enough to stay off comms. The point man's face was a mask of discipline, but his eyes held the flicker of shared history, a night patrol where Rex had scented insurgents before the drones picked up heat. Loyalty in the teams wasn't blind, it was earned, layer by layer, in the silence between commands. Hale met his gaze, a nod passing unspoken. "Cover," he said quietly, and Ellis pivoted, scanning the perimeter with renewed focus. Hale's hand moved to the panel, lifting it with controlled force. The wood creaked, revealing a shallow recess beneath, empty of explosives, as expected. But there, tangled in the shadows, was another item, a child's sandal, small rubber sole cracked from wear, imprinted with the faint outline of a foot that had once run through safer sands. Not standard issue for the sim, this was ad hoc, overlooked by the range safety crew. Rex lunged forward, nose burying into the space, his tail a stiff flag of confirmation. Hale's breath caught. The scent trail was fresh, layered with human residue, not the sterile props of training. "What the hell?" Hale muttered, pulling out the sandal. It was real, scuffed and warm from the sun, carrying the faint, unmistakable whiff of talcum powder and unwashed cotton, scents Rex associated with non-combatants. The comms erupted. "Hale, report your position! That's not part of the exercise!" Ramirez's voice carried an edge now, the kind that preceded debriefs in windowless rooms. Overhead, the Blackhawk's rotors thrummed louder, a shadow sweeping across the compound as it circled for pickup. Before Hale could respond, a shout cut through from the far end of the mock village. "Contact! Unauthorized personnel!" It was Petty Officer Lang, Bravo Team's rear security, his voice taut over the net. The team snapped to, weapons up, sectors overlapped in practiced rhythm. Hale clipped Rex's lead short, the dog heeling instantly, body coiled but silent. They advanced as a unit, boots pounding in sync, the air thickening with tension that hummed like taut guy wires. Rounding the corner of the last shack, they found it. A local worker, no older than 16, crouched behind a stack of crates, his eyes wide with fear. He clutched a worn backpack, the source of the scents. Inside, Hale glimpsed toys, a water bottle, personal effects smuggled onto base against regs. The kid was part of the contracted labor force, Qatari nationals handling logistics, but protocol forbade personal items in secure zones. He'd hidden to retrieve something forgotten, a child's belonging from home, perhaps left by a sibling during a family visit. "Hands up," slowly, Ellis barked, his M4 trained low but firm. The boy complied, trembling, palms open against the dusty wall. Rex sat at Hale's command, but his ears stayed forward, assessing no threat. Ramirez arrived in a sprint, flanked by 2 MPs from base security, their radios squawking with alerts. "What is this, Lieutenant?" Ramirez demanded, his face a storm cloud under the brim of his patrol cap. The Master Chief's eyes flicked to the sandal in Hale's hand, then to Rex, who hadn't broken stare from the boy. "You ignored a direct stand down. Explain." Hale stood at ease, though his pulse still raced, the weight of the trident on his chest feeling heavier. "Rex signaled a personnel hit, Master Chief, not ordnance, something human. I cleared it to confirm. This kid, he wasn't a threat, but he breached perimeter protocols. Could have been worse if he'd panicked during live fire." The MPs moved in, cuffing the boy gently but efficiently, his protests a murmur in Arabic translated by a quick radio call. Ramirez's gaze hardened, scanning the team assembled now, a semicircle of operators watching with the stillness of men who'd seen orders bend before. "You think you're judge and jury now, Hale? CENTCOM's watching this drill for a reason. Efficiency, not hunches. That dog of yours is good, but he's not infallible, and neither are you." Hale held his ground, Rex leaning against his leg, a subtle anchor. "With respect, sir, Rex doesn't do hunches. He saved us from a blue-on-blue last tour. If I'd stood down, we might have had an incident, accidental or not." The words hung in the air, laced with the unspoken. The chain of command protected them, but blind obedience could cost innocence. Ramirez exhaled sharply, the wind whipping sand around their boots like scattered regrets. "Secure the area. Debrief at 1400 hours. Hale, you're with me." As the team dispersed, Cataloguing the scene with procedural snaps of photos and notes, Hale knelt to Rex, scratching behind the ears in silent thanks. The dog's eyes met his, steady, a bond unbroken by ranks or orders. But Hale knew the reckoning was just beginning, the kind that tested not just a handler's instincts, but the soul of the institution itself. The sun climbed higher, baking the tarmac. As the Black Hawk settled nearby, its downdraft scattering grit like whispers of doubt, Hale boarded last, Rex at his side, the sandal tucked into his kit as evidence. In the helo's shadowed belly, amid the throb of engines and the scent of hydraulic fluid, he pondered the ripple. One defied order, and now eyes from HQ would scrutinize every cue, every choice. Loyalty to Rex was clear, but loyalty to the team demanded more, facing the tribunal of consequences head-on. The debrief room at Joint Base Al Udeid was a stark box of beige walls and fluorescent hum, the kind of space where secrets were unpacked like ordnance crates. Lieutenant Marcus Hale sat at the scarred conference table, his posture ramrod straight, hands folded on the laminate surface. Rex lay at his feet, head on paws, the dogs breathing a steady rhythm against the linoleum. The air conditioner wheezed, battling the midday heat that seeped through sealed windows, carrying the faint, persistent odor of recycled air and stale coffee from the pot in the corner. Master Chief Ramirez paced the front, his boots echoing like measured accusations. Flanking him were two officers from CENTCOM's oversight team, Captain Ellis, no relation to the point man, a wiry admin type with a clipboard, and Major Voss, a stern-faced JAG rep whose uniform pins caught the light like distant stars. The room held a dozen SEALs from the platoon, seated in rows, their faces impassive masks honed by years of after-action reviews. No one spoke. The only sounds were the scratch of pens on notepads and the occasional crackle from the recorder, capturing every word. "Let's review the timeline," Ramirez began, his voice clipped, projecting a slide on the wall-mounted screen. A grainy photo of the mock village, time-stamped, 6:37 hours. Alpha Platoon enters Sector 3. Hale's K9 signals on a non-standard prop. I issue stand down at 0642. Lieutenant, you acknowledge but proceed. Result, discovery of unauthorized personnel. Explain your rationale. Hale met Ramirez's gaze evenly, his throat dry but voice steady. Master Chief, Rex's alert was specific. Personnel sent, not explosive. Protocol allows handler discretion on secondary indicators in training scenarios. The boy was inside the perimeter carrying contraband. Standing down risked an undetected breach during a live op simulation. Voss leaned forward, his chair creaking. Discretion, Lieutenant? Or insubordination? CENTCOM's directive, dated last month, mandates strict adherence to ROE in drills to minimize variables. Your action disrupted the exercise, tying up resources for a Qatari national who admitted to smuggling personal items. No threat, just a kid retrieving a sibling's toy. The room shifted subtly, boots scraping, a cough muffled. Hale felt Rex's ear twitch against his ankle, the dog sensing the undercurrent of tension like a change in barometric pressure. With respect, Major. Rex's training includes distinguishing civilian from combatant sense. That sandal wasn't a prop. It was real, laced with human residue. If this were operational, ignoring it could lead to civilian exposure or worse. Ellis from Oversight jotted notes, his pen a staccato beat. And your team, they covered your deviation without reporting it immediately. Petty Officer Ellis, your point man, confirmed sectors but didn't log the override. Collective judgment call? Petty Officer Ellis straightened in his seat, his response measured. Sir, LT Hale's calls have kept us square on multiple rotations. Rex doesn't false out. We backed the play to confirm, per team integrity protocols. Ramirez halted his pace, arms crossing over his chest. The Master Chief's face was a study in controlled frustration, lines etched deeper by the overhead lights. Team integrity doesn't trump chain of command. This isn't Bud S. It's forward deployment. HQ's auditing us for efficiency. False positives like this slow response times, waste man-hours. Hale, you put your bond with that dog above orders. What if every handler did the same? The question landed like a suppressed round, quiet but piercing. Hale's fingers tightened under the table, recalling the helo ride back, the rotor wash fading into the base's hum. Rex's steady presence a counterweight to the knot in his gut. He'd weighed it then, the cost of obedience versus the echo of past mistakes, like the teammate lost to an overlooked cache. But here, under scrutiny, the room felt smaller, the walls pressing in with the weight of precedent. Before Hale could reply, the door swung open with a pneumatic hiss. Colonel Harlan, the base commander, entered, his presence sucking the air from the space. Tall and broad, his uniform tailored sharp, he carried a tablet under one arm. The platoon rose as one, chairs scraping in unison, salutes snapping crisp. "At ease," Harlan said, voice gravelly from years of briefings. He took the head of the table, nodding to Voss. "Continue. I've been looped in from SOCOM." Ramirez recapped succinctly, gesturing to the screen where a video clip played. Bodycam footage of Hale lifting the panel, Rex's insistent pawing captured in shaky resolution. The boy appeared moments later, hands raised, the backpack spilling toys onto the dirt. A stuffed camel, a plastic truck, items that screamed innocence amid the tactical grid. Harlan watched in silence, his expression unreadable. When the clip ended, he set the tablet down. "Lieutenant Hale, walk me through your decision tree, step by step." Hale stood, Rex rising fluidly to sit beside him, the leash a loose loop on the floor. "Sir, initial alert at the third structure." Rex's body language, sustained interest vocalization variant for non-hostile human. "I assessed risk, low for ordnance, high for unknown personnel in a cleared zone. Acknowledged stand down, but initiated visual confirmation to rule out escalation. Discovery confirmed no immediate threat, but highlighted a protocol gap. Local workers accessing restricted SIM areas without full screening." The colonel nodded slowly, eyes flicking to Rex, who held his gaze without flinching. "The K9's record is exemplary, 98% hit rate per your logs. But orders exist to maintain discipline. Your action exposed a vulnerability, perimeter security for contractors. The boy, Ahmed Khalil, is in holding. His father works logistics. This was a family oversight. No malice, but it could have compromised the drill." Murmurs rippled through the platoon, subtle, like wind through canvas. Lang, the rear security who first spotted the kid, leaned toward his neighbor, whispering, "LT's got brass now." Voss interjected, "Colonel, recommendation, formal reprimand for Hale, retraining for the handler unit on ROE compliance." Harlan raised a hand, silencing the room. The AC droned on, a counterpoint to the tension coiling like a spring. "Not yet. This isn't just about one order. It's about the system." Hale's instinct flagged a real issue. Our SIMs are too sanitized. Contractors mingle with ops daily. If a K9 catches what eyes miss, we adapt, not punish. He turned to Ramirez. "Master Chief, stand up a review board. Include K9 protocols. Hale, you're sidelined pending outcome. No field rotations." The words settled heavy, a ripple through the ranks. Hale saluted, chest tight. "Understood, sir." As the meeting adjourned, operators filed out in orderly fashion, boots echoing down the corridor. Rex pressed against Hale's leg, a warm reassurance amid the cooling scrutiny. Outside, the afternoon sun baked the quad, mirages dancing off the helipads. But inside Hale, the moral fault line widened. Defiance had surfaced the truth, but at what cost to his career, his team? Ramirez lingered, clapping a hand on Hale's shoulder, firm, not unkind. "You walked the line, Lieutenant. Hope it was worth it." Hale nodded, clipping Rex's lead as they exited into the glare. The base thrummed with routine, trucks rumbling, a distant siren wailing protocol. But for Hale, the reckoning echoed louder, a call to conscience that demanded more than silence. In the days that followed, whispers spread through the chow hall and barracks. Hale's stand-down override, the kids' toys as unlikely evidence. Media liaisons from CENTCOM caught wind, prepping a sanitized release on enhanced training protocols. But the platoon knew. The bond between man and dog had cracked open a door to reform, one quiet defiance at a time. Comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far stories of courage and integrity can reach. The review board convened under the low ceiling of the base's operations center, a cavernous space lined with server racks, humming like distant artillery. Fluorescent strips buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on the faces gathered around the U-shaped table. Lieutenant Marcus Hale stood at parade rest near the door, his uniform pressed but sleeves bearing the faint creases of restless nights. Rex sat beside him, harness polished, the dog's flanks rising and falling in calm rhythm, oblivious to the human undercurrents, but attuned to Hale's subtle tension. A slight shift in stance, the flex of a jaw. Colonel Harlan presided from the center, flanked by Major Voss from JAG and a civilian contractor from the K-9 training program, Dr. Elena Torres, her notebook open to charts of scent calibration data. Master Chief Ramirez sat to Harlan's right, arms folded, his presence a bulwark of enlisted perspective. Across the table, representatives from base security and CENTCOM oversight filled the seats, their tablets glowing with redacted reports. The air carried the metallic tang of dry erase markers and the underlying must of overworked ventilation, punctuated by the occasional ping of incoming emails from secure lines. "Proceed with testimony," Harlan ordered, his voice carrying the gravel of command without elevation. A projector whirred to life, displaying a timeline. Timestamps from body cams, Rex's alert logged at 0641, Hale's acknowledgement at 0642, and the discovery at 0645. The room smelled of fresh printouts, stacked dossiers on the boy's background. Ahmed Khalil, son of a logistics driver with clearance but no authorization for restricted zones. Voss opened, his tone procedural, like reading from a field manual. "Lieutenant Hale, your log entry cites handler discretion under FM 305, 242, K-9 operations. Elaborate on how this applied when Master Chief Ramirez issued a direct stand-down." Hale stepped forward, boots silent on the carpeted floor. "Sir, the manual allows for immediate action on confirmed alerts to prevent escalation. Rex's signal was layered, personnel over trace explosive residue from prior drills. In the live scenario, that could indicate a hidden civilian or asset. I weighed the order against operational safety. Confirmation took under 3 minutes, no disruption to the broader exercise." Torres interjected, her voice measured, accent clipped from years in Virginia labs. "The dog's telemetry data supports this. Rex's heart rate spiked 12% on the secondary scent, consistent with non-combatant profiles from his training database. False positives occur at 2%, but this matched 97% to civilian markers. Sweat, fabric, no accelerants." Ramirez leaned in, his chair creaking under his frame. "With respect, Doctor, that's lab talk. In the field, we follow the net." Hale's choice rippled. MPs diverted. SIM halted for an hour. CENTCOM's efficiency metrics are down 15% this quarter. Incidents like this feed the narrative of over-reliance on assets over command structure. The room stirred, a low murmur like radio static. Harlan silenced it with a raised hand, eyes on Hale. "The boy, Ahmed, his statement?" A security officer slid a folder forward, pages crisp. "Translated and verified, sir. He entered the SIM area via an unsecured gate during shift change. forgotten backpack from his sister's visit last week. Items inside, toys, no contraband. Father unaware, no intent to breach, but it exposed gaps in contractor screening. Hale absorbed this, the weight settling like sand in his boots. He'd seen the kid's face in the holding photos, eyes downcast, hands cuffed loosely. The fear of a 16-year-old, far from any battlefield intent. Rex had scented vulnerability, not villainy, and Hale's defiance had pulled it into the light. But now, under these lights, it felt like unraveling a thread that could snag the whole uniform. Voss pressed on, flipping to a highlighted section. Your team corroborated the action, Lieutenant. No immediate report up the chain. This suggests a cultural issue. Platoon-level autonomy overriding protocol. Recommend mandatory retraining for all handlers, plus a formal letter of counseling for Hale. Dr. Torres shook her head slightly, pen tapping her pad. Punitive measures ignore the data. Rex's intervention identified a real vulnerability. 22% of contractor incidents last year involved overlooked personal access. Integrating K9 discretion could enhance, not hinder, efficiency. The debate unfolded methodically, voices overlapping in clipped exchanges, Ramirez advocating discipline to preserve cohesion, Voss citing regs to protect the institution, Torres pushing evidence-based adaptation. Harlan listened, his fingers drumming a silent cadence on the table, the only outward sign of deliberation. Outside, the base's evening routine filtered through the vents, the distant rumble of a C-130 taxiing, the sharp bark of another K-9 in training, winds scattering sand against the reinforced glass. Hale stood silent, Rex's warmth a steady press against his leg. The dog's loyalty was uncomplicated, no ranks, no audits, just the raw truth of scent. But Hale felt the fracture lines. His career teetered on this board's verdict, a potential mark on his record that could sideline him from rotations, erode trust in the platoon. Ellis and the others had backed him without hesitation, their silence in the debrief, a vote of confidence, but exposure like this could fracture that bond, turning quiet support into scrutinized liability. Harlan finally spoke, cutting through the tension like a clean radio check. Enough. This isn't a court-martial, it's a pivot point. Hale's action, while outside protocol, surfaced a systemic flaw. Contractors interface daily. Our perimeters aren't ironclad. Recommendation, no reprimand. Instead, pilot a revised K9 protocol under Hale's oversight. Include scent drills for civilian scenarios. Master Chief, integrate it into platoon training. CENTCOM gets the brief by 800 tomorrow. Relief rippled subtly, shoulders easing, a collective exhale masked as shifted postures. Voss noted it down, expression neutral, while Ramirez nodded curtly. The Master Chief's respect unspoken but evident in the lack of protest. Torres smiled faintly, closing her notebook. As the board adjourned, operators rose in orderly fashion, chairs pushed back with precision. Harlan approached Hale last, his handshake firm, calloused from years gripping reins of command. You tested the line, Lieutenant. It held. But remember, reform starts with trust. Yours in the dog, the team's in you, and the chain's in all of us. Hale saluted, chest loosening for the first time since the sim. Yes, sir. Outside, twilight painted the base in bruised purples, the air cooling to carry hints of ocean salt from the Gulf. Rex trotted at heel as they crossed the quad, past Humvees parked in neat rows, their hoods ticking with residual heat. The reckoning had gone public, briefs would circulate, protocols evolve, but Hale sensed the deeper shift. His defiance hadn't broken the system. It had bent it towards something truer. In the barracks, word spread like after-action whispers. Hale's play validated, Rex's nose a quiet hero. Ellis clapped his shoulder during evening chow, the team's nods a subtle affirmation amid the clink of trays and murmur of regs. Yet Hale knew the cost lingered. Eyes from higher would watch closer, every future alert a test of the new balance. Loyalty to Rex remained his anchor, but now it tethered a larger legacy, one where conscience and command could align, if only through the grit of earned change. Months passed like the steady turnover of patrols, the Gulf's relentless sun etching deeper lines into the base's concrete and the faces of those who served. Lieutenant Marcus Hale moved through the routine with renewed precision. His days, now threaded with the pilot program Colonel Harlan had greenlit. The Ops Center had become his second home. Maps unrolled across tables marked not just with threat vectors, but with scent profiles, civilian markers layered over tactical grids. Rex trotted at his heel during briefings, the dog's presence a quiet endorsement, his harness jingling softly against the hum of servers and the scratch of markers on dry erase boards. The revised protocol rolled out incrementally, starting with Alpha Platoon's rotations. Hale led the first integrated drill at dawn, the air crisp with the scent of dew on sand. Humvees idling in a low growl as operators dismounted into the mock village. "Such!" Hale commanded, and Rex bounded forward, nose weaving through the plywood alleys, pausing at simulated contractor zones rigged with benign scents, fabric swatches, talcum residue, the faint echo of children's playthings buried shallow. No longer a binary alert, explosive or clear, the dog's cues now fed into a decision matrix, allowing handlers brief discretion to confirm without full stand-downs. "Report." Dudu Ramirez called over the net, his voice steady from the observation post, binoculars trained on the team's advance. Hale keyed his mic, watching Rex sit alert at a crate stack, paw extended toward a hidden backpack prop. "Secondary hit, Master Chief. Civilian profile, no ordnance, confirming visually." The team stacked efficiently, Ellis peeling off to cover, while Hale lifted the lid. Inside, a stuffed animal, its fur dusted with mock residue. Clean, but the exercise logged it as a validated flag, metrics ticking up in real time on the base's secure dashboard. Ramirez arrived post-drill, his boots crunching gravel as the sun crested, casting long shadows across the compound. "Timeline held," he noted, glancing at the tablet in Hale's hand. "No halts. CENTCOM's preliminary feedback. Positive on integration." The Master Chief's tone carried a grudging respect, the kind forged in shared sweat rather than words. Hale nodded, clipping Rex's lead as the dog shook off dust, wet fur gleaming under the rising light. "It's the balance, sir. Rex flags what eyes miss. We adapt the chain to trust it." Word of the pilot spread beyond Al Udeid, briefs cascading up to SOCOM and trickling down to other forward units. Dr. Torres returned for evaluations, her laptop open in the chow hall amid the clatter of trays and murmur of off-duty chatter. "Hit rates up 14% in mixed scenarios," she reported to Harlan during a walkthrough. The colonel's patrol cap tucked under his arm as they inspected a new K9 kennel, steel runs with climate controls funded by reallocated efficiency savings. Rex explored the space, nose to the grated floor, while Hale stood by, the bond between them evident in the dog's occasional glance back, a silent check-in. Harlan paused at the entrance, the air thick with the scent of fresh straw and oiled leather from nearby gear lockers. "Your stand changed the playbook, Lieutenant. Not just here. MacDill's incorporating it into stateside quals. Handlers like you are mentoring now." Hale absorbed the praise quietly, his hand resting on Rex's head, feeling the steady pulse beneath the fur. The cost had been real. Sidelined rotations meant watching his platoon deploy without him, nights in the barracks listening to radio static from afar, the quiet ache of separation. But the reform rippled outward, a quiet justice that mended fractures in the system. Contractor screenings tightened, perimeter checks enhanced with K9 sweeps, preventing oversights before they became incidents. Ahmed Khalil's case became a footnote in the training modules, anonymized but illustrative, a video clip from the body cam, narrated in procedural tones, emphasizing discretion's role in safeguarding all within the wire. The boy's father, a logistics driver with a decade on base, shook Hale's hand during a low-key handover, clearance reinstated, family visits streamlined under new regs. "Your dog. He saw what we hid," the man said in halting English, eyes downcast but grateful, the exchange brief amid the rumble of supply trucks. Hale nodded, no fanfare, just the discipline of acknowledgement. The platoon's cohesion strengthened in the aftermath. Subtle shifts in the barracks routine, Ellis leading informal handler sessions, Lang logging scent data with newfound focus. Over evening chow, under the fluorescent glow and the distant thump of helos winding down, conversations turned to legacy, not boasts, but measured reflections on choices that echoed beyond the op. "You made us think twice," Ramirez admitted one night, nursing coffee in the OPS tent, the canvas flaps stirring in the night breeze. "Orders keep us alive, but trust in the team, that's what endures." Hale's record cleared fully by quarter's end, his trident shining brighter in the institutional light. He took point on a real patrol along the Syrian fringe, Rex's nose cutting through the dust-choked wadis. The team's advance a symphony of hushed commands and overlapping sectors. No alerts that run, but the protocol's framework held, discretion exercised, chain intact. Back at base, as the sun dipped into the horizon, painting the runways in fiery hues, Hale knelt to unharness Rex, the dog's wet nose pressing against his palm in quiet affirmation. The transformation settled like dust after a convoy. Hale no longer just a handler, but a symbol of moral calibration, his defiance a catalyst for evolution. The institution, rigid as ever, learned to bend, honoring loyalty in all its forms, from man to dog, from order to conscience. In the quiet breath before the next dawn, the base thrummed with purpose renewed, a legacy etched in protocols and unbreakable bonds. In the end, one handler's trust in his K9 partner proved that integrity could reform the unyielding, turning rigid lines into pathways of quiet strength. Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage, and justice within the ranks. Thank you for watching the case of Stand Down, HQ ordered, but the SEAL's K9 caught the scent of a child's toy. See you in the next one.